Hello, welcome back to the channel 12-Step Guide with Troy O. Today we are going to further our Step 4 understanding in Alcoholics Anonymous. The previous videos we were looking at the big book, the Alcoholics Anonymous big book. Now we're going to look at the Alcoholics Anonymous step book. It's 12 Steps in 12 Traditions. It came out about 13 years after the big book. We're going to look at this step 4 section. However, I'm not reading that in its entirety today. That's going to happen next video. Today, we're going to iron out some rough spots and potentially for the first time, understand how it was intended. We're going to understand a certain section and how it fits the work we previously did. Now, I want to look at it from two perspectives. One will be the people that have followed along and worked with me through step 4 out of the big book. The second will be someone, let's say newcomer, interested in learning step 4, whoever, looks at the options, the book Alcoholics Anonymous or the 12 Steps and 12 Traditions, figures, well, the 12 steps must be where you learn how to do the 12 steps. Wants to know step 4, picks up the book, starts reading. So I'm going to start at a certain point, and that point will be, for those that have been following along, after column 3, 4, and 5 of the Fear list that I had read. And so I'm just going to pick it up at a certain point. We're going to confront a question or something that comes up fairly quickly. So by now, the newcomer has probably arrived at the following conclusions: that his character defects, representing instincts gone astray, have been the primary cause of his drinking and his failure at life. That unless he is now willing to work hard at the elimination of the worst of these defects, both sobriety and peace of mind will still elude him. That all the faulty foundation of his life will have to be torn out, built anew on bedrock. Now willing to commence the search for his own defects, he will ask, just how do I go about this? How do I take inventory of myself? So the newcomer is elated here. Well, here it is. Here's how I do this. So he's going to read and figure it out. The person been following along with me is like, hold on now. I've been at this maybe for months. I got 4 separate types of lists. I got all kinds of pages. I've been going through all kinds of stuff, writing this stuff down. Bill's told me put it on paper, and I've swallowed a lot and all this bit. And now you're going to tell me how to do step 4? This is a source of confusion. It's always been a source of confusion. It confused me. It's not clear, and I'll give you that, but I'm going to clear it up, at least as best as I can. So this is a good opportunity for us to go back to the forward and find out what's going on here. All right, so let's start. So I'm going to just pick it up on page 11. I was reading from page 50 in the 12 and 12 step book. All right, so in the forward, page 17. Nevertheless, the Infant Society determined to set down its experience in a book which finally reached the public in April of 1939. Today's September 7th, 2025. 90 years later, maybe for the first time, we might really be understanding this stuff. Whether you agree with that statement or not, regardless, I encourage this. Work to understand it better than me. Work to improve it, to be able to teach it, to do it better than me. I assure you, 38 years sober and all that effort previous, and people been following along, have an idea what I've been about. This will be the first time today that I will understand this as well as I do. So I offer that. We can build on this. We're just getting started 90 years later, as far as I believe. In corrections, this stuff, look at, in my opinion, people outside of 12-step recovery haven't understood really 12-step recovery, except for to a certain point, because the people in 12-step recovery haven't understood 12-step recovery except for beyond a certain point. And the ones that did often get better and leave. They don't stick around. So I'm encouraging us to teach this early on, as Bill had intended. And if I can help you understand it, then it'll be easier to teach also, I believe. Thank you for allowing my opinion. Okay, so we're going to continue on with the forward to answer this question. All right, so the book was called Alcoholics Anonymous, and from it the fellowship took its name. And that's the book. We're not reading from that book today. That's a book come out 13 years before. In it, alcoholism was described from the alcoholic's point of view. The spiritual ideas of this society were codified for the first time in the 12 steps. The first time public ever got a look at the 12 steps, or anybody in the program, was in 1939. You'll see our earlier videos, 6-step program, the 4 absolutes. In the application of these steps to the alcoholic's dilemma was made clear. The remainder of the book was devoted to 30 stories or case histories in which the alcoholics described their drinking experiences and recoveries. This established identification with alcoholic readers and proved to them that the virtually impossible had now become possible. The book Alcoholics Anonymous, that book came out first, became the basic text of the fellowship and still is. So that's the basic text. That's the first text. That's the text you go to first to understand the program. This present volume, the present volume that he's referring to, is the step book, the 12 Steps and 12 Traditions step book. So this present volume proposes to broaden and deepen the understanding of the 12 steps as first written in the earlier work. What is he saying? And he would have helped if he gave some reassurance down the road, but he's saying basically at no time was the step book intended to supersede the big book. The big book always comes first. He presupposes you have a point of reference that you are operating from. This isn't a cold beginning, or it wasn't intended to be. It can be and has been for many, but that cold beginning causes people to miss a lot. And so what I'm going to do today is the rest of the reading that needs to be considered. I have put it into paper format, and I've altered it slightly so that we can better understand it from the individual's perspective. You're doing step 4. You're reading these questions. You have to interpret things like we to I, or how the questions might better fit the individual. In some cases, maybe I've defined something a little better, but largely I've maintained Bill's work. I'm very sensitive to that, and so I've stuck tight. When we read the step book in its entirety, some more color will get filled in because there's pieces of information within these that I don't include today. I'm going to read a little bit more first, just to get a little bit of context of where he was going from there at page 50. So, how do I take inventory of myself? Now, we know we've already done the work. Since step 4 is but the beginning of a lifetime practice, it can be suggested that he first have a look at those personality flaws which are acutely troublesome and fairly obvious. So, first time out doing this stuff, as in the big book, we're looking for the more glaring stuff. Using his best judgment of what has been right and what has been wrong, he might make a rough survey of his conduct with respect to his primary instincts for sex, security, and sobriety. Looking back over his life, he can readily get underway by consideration of questions such as these. So he's going to get into some questions. So, a person that hasn't done any work, you'll know there's references being made. You will likely won't understand what those references are. The person that has followed along and done the work are going to understand these references quite well. So, these questions, let's consider that we've already done an examination, an investigation of ourselves. And that language is going to come in later, so that's why I'm providing that. And so this is from the AA book, 12 Steps and 12 Traditions. I'm going to release a PDF format of this, so this information is going to be available to you after I complete step 4. And this is the 4th step section in the step book, page 50 to 54, with minor alterations. It relates to Alcoholics Anonymous, Big Book, Chapter 5, Resentment, Fears, Sex, and Harms lists. Okay. When considering our conduct with respect to our primary instincts for sex, security, and society being personal relations, we know that in the resentment list, sex, security, personal relations comes up. We also know sex comes up in the sex list, but there's other places where it comes up. While you can use these questions to help build your list, it's really intended to, you've already made a list, and now you're looking at that list and you're building off of it. You're understanding yourself deeper. We're not going top to bottom anymore. We're not that injured. We're not that sensitive. We've swallowed a lot. We've been at this a while. We're going to now start trying to reduce some ideas. We're going to see how step 6 evolves out of this, for example. And we're going to clear up more for step 5 when we're talking to a sponsor, spiritual advisor, counselor, clergy, whoever. Back to the questions. So, when considering our conduct with respect to my primary instincts for sex, security, and society, personal relations, when, how, and in just what instance did my selfish pursuit of the sex relation damage other people and me? So these words have come up, the word selfish and sex relations. So we kind of look it over and size up the question from our 4 lists, because pieces of it might show up. We're just looking for common denominators here. Now, if something fires and you add a new person, and that's great too. But we're taking largely from our list and trying to reduce it down and see patterns, cycles, things like that. What people were hurt and how badly. Bill, again and again, we know, covered that question. Largely, it's column 5 of those lists. Who did we hurt? Because we're looking to make a list also for step 8, so we can take that into step 9. So we're going to have pieces here for step 6. We're going to have pieces here for step 8. And Let's continue. Did I spoil my marriage or injure the children? Is another question. Did something like that happen? Now, I at the time when I got sober, didn't have a marriage or children. I had plenty that I lost, but it wasn't that. For example, you can also see, I'm going to alter this question a little bit. It didn't, but it did affect relationships. I did have other relationships that were affected. So I'm going to make that adjustment. And I encourage you, if the question doesn't quite fit, what does fit about it? How can you redecorate it? Maybe you're a codependent, overeater, gambler, whoever. Most of these you could redecorate in order to better understand how they apply to you. You can jump in at any point in the 5 columns and build it out. And while you write out these questions and answers, you're not looking for big, long answers. You can get wordy in step 5. You're just looking again to trap information. You get all wordy now, and by the time you get to step 5, where you're going to read the words to them, don't or her, don't do that. You just trap the ideas and deal with it then. Did I jeopardize my standing in the community? Just how did I react to these situations at the time? You look at your list, see if you made some jeopardize these things, any one of these things, and try to get some information on it. Did I burn with guilt that nothing could extinguish? Know anything about that? I'll tell you, I had a drink to kill the guilt from the day before's behaviors, if you will. Or did I insist that I was the pursued and not the pursuer, and thus absolve myself? Oh, I'm free of all that. It's somebody else's fault. How have I reacted to frustration in sexual matters? Look over that sex conduct list. Look over that how you were affected sexually, hidden sex or acceptable sex, and see if you can find some patterns and things and ways that you may have behaved a given way to understand yourself. When denied, so how have I reacted to frustration in sexual matters? Question mark. When denied, did I become vengeful or depressed? Did I take it out on other people? If there was rejection or coldness at home, did I use this as a reason for promiscuity? Were you out cheating or fixing to cheat as a result of this other things happening? So now we're going to get into another question, kind of another category, if you will. The first category really focused on sex security and society, but now this one's financial and emotional security. So, and these are all I'm going right. You can find this. We're still on page 51 in the step book, Alcoholics Anonymous. When considering behavior around financial and emotional security, now that word security come up in column 3, affected both financial or emotional security. We find greed, fear, possessiveness, and pride have too often done their worst. And we know about these. A fear, it's covered in a fear list and column 4 of your resentment list. We know greed. That's what's at one of the columns in the fear list out of the step book. We know pride to be possessive, maybe not let someone else have their own relationship, afraid they're going to leave you, dominating. So these things have often done their worst. When surveying, when considering, when looking over my business or employment record, so when you've been at work, and in addition to my drinking problem, so we're considering that also. There's some new questions still on page 51. What character defects contributed to financial instability? So, a couple of things. That's step 6. We're looking forward to try to make a step 6 list. So, when we go to step 6, we have something to work with. Now, what character defects contributed to financial instability? I'll tell you, when I didn't drink, I was cheap with money. I was good with money. When I was drinking, I could piss money through a tin horn. It all went down the drain. I mean, so anyway, we're looking for the types of character defects, of behaviors, ways we reacted, responded, things we did that we can see weren't the best way. There's not necessarily there's descriptions. There's not necessarily picture perfect words here. You're looking for descriptions of yourself, ways that you can understand behaviors you may want to change. How to build a defense against these things. First defense for me was find a way to stop drinking. Did fear? Now we did a fear list, right? And fear is in what column 4 of our resentment list. Did fear and inferiority about my fitness for my job destroy my confidence and fill me with conflict? So you felt less than or not quite adequate, or you weren't really qualified, and that good, maybe you were lying about it or you're bluffing your way through, and that produced conflict within you. Problems arose along the way, maybe. Did I try to cover up feelings of inadequacy? That's inferiority. By bluffing, cheating, lying, or evading responsibility? Look over your work record and stuff, see if any of that applies, and try to build on it to understand yourself better. So, did I cover up feelings of by bluffing, lying, or evading responsibility? Here's another question. Or by griping, that's complaining, that others failed to recognize my truly exceptional abilities. Did I overvalue myself and play the big shot? Look over your list and see if any of that applies. Again, if it doesn't, what does apply? What did you do in those circumstances? There's a real question here, and you could find yourself in it. So we're going to get into a bit of a new category. Did I have such unprincipled, that's dishonest, ambition that I double crossed and undercut my associates? Was I extravagant? That's wasteful. Did I recklessly borrow money and not really care if it was paid back? Was I a pinch penny, tight with money, refusing to support my family properly? Look over the old list, see if any of that applies, assuming that you had a family, had children. Did I cut corners financially? How about the quick money deals, the stock market, races? I threw in scratch tickets and other gambling. So we'll get into a bit of a different category. These questions apply to the house. I threw in he's got housewife, husband, mate. 90 years ago, it was more common. Now it can go in any direction more commonly. So these questions apply to the housewife, husband, mate, also who can make the family financially insecure. So you have security. Well, insecurity is an aspect of security and financial insecurity. Did I juggle charge cards, manipulate the food budget, gamble, or otherwise run the family into debt from irresponsibility, waste, and extravagance to live large? We are homes sucking up all the money, drinking and making bad decisions, and behaving in a way that wasn't consistent with how you might have otherwise. Look over your lists and see if there's anything to do with that. Maybe you can add to your lists. Now he's going to get into something else. This is important here, okay? He's taking it up a notch. Give it that. Those who drank themselves out of jobs, family, and friends will need to cross examine ourselves ruthlessly to determine how their own personality defects have thus demolished their security. So I have a note. We examined ourselves, step 4 in the big book. Now we are cross examining ourselves with these questions. So picture, say, a prosecuting attorney and a defense attorney, but in this case, you're the one trying to get to the truth. You examine the truth, and then now you are cross examining. And he finds this more important, such as myself. I might have got sober at 22, but I'll tell you, I lost a lot of apartments, automobiles, drank up all the brain cells, hurt a lot of people. I was real motivated. I managed to do a lot of things. I'd been working since I was 14, had a degree in auto diesel mechanics. I bought and sold cars at 16. I moved to a lot of different states by the time I got sober. Places weren't big enough for me, get in there, burn everybody, and run along. And I didn't want to do those things. I didn't go to those places to get started again with a new job and a new apartment. Those weren't easy things to do. Nonetheless, alcohol put it in my system, and I was just got worse and worse. So we're cross-examining ourselves, and we are cross-examining ourselves off of the lists we made from the big book. You can't have a cross-examination without an examination. If I wasn't able to convince you on the first part that this deepens and broadens, this is a second effort to impress upon you. Now we're cross-examining ourselves based on that previous list. And we're looking at security. And we know that that is one of the columns, resentment list. Again, financial, emotional security. Now we're going to get into some other questions. I'm going to read that question again. So now with context, those who drank themselves out of jobs, family, and friends will need to cross-examine ourselves ruthlessly to determine how their own personality defects have thus demolished their security. Now we know that word security in column 3 resentment list, and we're looking for these personality defects to take into step 6, things about ourselves that we could change, flaws, things that didn't go well, things like that. So here's some questions. When considering emotional insecurity, so that's that column 3 area, all your lists also, but we're considering emotional insecurity. We often find the symptoms of worry, anger, self-pity, or depression. If you've had any of those feelings, these can be set off from problems within us or from outside sources. Taking inventory in this area, we ought to consider carefully all personal relationships. So we know that's column 3, resentment list. No doubt things will come up in the fear list. Consider carefully all personal relationships which bring continuous or reoccurring trouble. So you look over all your lists, what relationships brought continuous or reoccurring trouble. Insecurity may exist where instincts, that's a predisposition. For our behavior is a predisposition behavior built into us, the way we've been reacting, however that came to be. Maybe it was simply born in, maybe we learned it as a youth, maybe alcoholism altered it, financial insecurity altered it, maybe we're codependent, maybe trauma, a war zone, having fought in a war. Um, you get the idea. On and on. It doesn't limit there. So, taking inventory in this area, we have to consider carefully all personal relationships which bring continuous or recurring trouble. Insecurity may exist where instincts are threatened. Here's a question, a category: what relationships cause recurring problems? Looking at past and present, what sex situations have caused me? In the big book, it didn't ask yourself, it was more interested in how the other was affected. Now he's asking you, what sex situations have caused you anxiety, bitterness, frustration, or depression? We know others have been affected in our lists. We certainly will consider those, but let's consider ourselves also. And let's not limit it to the sex, but that might be a big area. And why is that? What happened there? Can you see where you are at fault? So, this is again building on your earlier list. Did this happen because of selfish or unreasonable demands? Did you make selfish or unreasonable demands? Is that why these things happened? If others caused the disturbance, do I lack the ability to accept what I cannot change? These areas of inquiry will help us see the problem better and make changes towards self-discipline. We are learning self-discipline, learning how our word means better to ourselves when we say no, when we place limits on things, to establish boundaries within ourselves and the people around us. So this isn't guesswork. Everything isn't unraveling. Everybody isn't a problem. These crazy things aren't happening. Here's a new category. Suppose that financial insecurity constantly arouses these same feelings. Well, it's a new category, the financial insecurity. Last time we were talking about personal relations and sex. But now these same feelings of anxiety, bitterness, frustration, or depression. So, financial insecurity, we're feeling broke or poor all the time, things aren't going well financially, don't have enough money, it can be a considerable strain on yourself, your relationships. What ones arouse? Do you feel anxiety around it? Bitterness around it? Maybe if you were getting a child support, that might help, for example. Or you did a job and didn't get paid, on and on. Frustration, not getting paid enough at work, you feel. Or depression. To what extent have my own mistakes fed my gnawing anxieties? What part might have you played in this? When I kept moving, get a new job, new apartment, start drinking, tear the place apart, blow the job, have to move on and get started again. I mean, these things, caused me, they were a source of problems for me. If the actions of others are part of the cause, what can I do about that? Look at in the meetings, Alcoholics Anonymous meetings, we're very much encouraged to keep the focus on ourselves. We're not giving advice to others in the meeting. We're talking about ourselves. That works excellent. However, when you're talking about life and your behaviors and you're in relationships, that is not how it works. If you can't see the whole picture alcoholically, hey, look, I've had to see the whole picture more than once, and I've been sober a while. It took me 7 years in sobriety, maybe around there, for the veil to drop and realize, hey, wait a minute, that doesn't work in a relationship. You got to see the whole picture, for example. So if the actions of others are part of the cause, what can I do about that? If I am unable to change the present state of affairs, am I willing to take the measures necessary to shape my life to conditions as they are? And depending on what those conditions are, you have to establish whether those conditions are reasonable and fair. Maybe they're not. The more you look at your life, the more you can understand what needs to change and what doesn't. And we have an opportunity to talk it out with another and answer these questions based on those previous lists that we made, and maybe based on new information that you may have generated as a result of considering these questions. And then it says right after that, questions such as these and other questions that come to mind will help turn up root causes. Two things are happening here. One, he's just giving you some examples, great examples, but he's also saying there's more questions that could apply here. If you have more questions, by all means, ask them. How do they relate to you? Transform them into the best way to help you turn up the root problem. If you can't pull the root up, the weed will grow back. You need to get the whole thing so that you can make credible quality changes towards a better life. So, from the cross examination, we began page 51 to 52. So now we're on page 52. This gets into dependency and codependency. He never uses the word specifically, but it does. And it's reasonable to consider that's a huge area in addiction. So let's consider the question. Let's consider twisted relations with family, friends, and society at large that many of us have suffered the most. We have been especially stupid and stubborn about them. So this is areas we've been particularly stupid and stubborn on. Shouldn't be a problem recalling that basic information. Do I lack the ability to form true partnerships? Yes or no? And why? Does my egomania, to be obsessed with self-need, to be narcissist? Does my egomania cause me to behave in one of two ways? I insist upon dominating the people I know, or I depend upon other people far too much. Kind of a codependent concept. And if you can't relate to the question in that format, where do you fit in that process? So, new category. Where do I find myself, past and present, in these statements? So I decorated this a little bit so we could understand these in question format. I felt it seemed like the best way to be able to at least contemplate them further rather than just taking them as a matter of fact. If I lean too heavily on people, they will sooner or later fail me, for they are human too, and cannot possibly meet my nonstop demands. In this way, my insecurity grows and festers. So where do you find yourself in that statement? What did you play any part? Does that help to shake anything loose? Do I habitually, that's regularly, try to manipulate, to use people? So, do I habitually try to manipulate others to my own willful desires, my will, what I want, how I want things to go, to where they revolt, they rebel, and resist me heavily Has that happened in the past, drinking or now, and even in sobriety or attempted sobriety, wherever, or other programs? Have I developed hurt feelings, a sense of persecution, that's to feel mistreated, and a desire to retaliate, to get even? So, have I developed hurt feelings, a sense of persecution, and a desire to retaliate? Any of that going on? Have I suffered hurt feelings and then redoubled my efforts at control? You see that a lot. Oh, I'm not going to drink again. I'm not. Next thing you know, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, and all you're starting to lose. Well, you don't like that, and continue to fail as my suffering becomes acute, more severe, and constant. My suffering became more and more. I wasn't dragging a relationship along with me, but I was meeting new people and forming new relationships, and again burning everybody in the path. Um, and I hate that that was the case, because I was told by credible people that when I wasn't drinking, I was a pretty nice guy. I was a pretty good guy. So there was a marked change in my behavior as drinking, and towards the end, drinking, I was just an animal. Have I suffered hurt feelings and then redoubled my efforts at control and continued to fail as my suffering became acute and constant? So I reread that question. Where do you find yourself there? It can always get worse, eh? Or we can get off the ride now. Your choice. If you are interested in the program and how to get there, can I be one in a family? Be a friend among friends? Be a worker among workers, a useful member of society? Or do I instead always struggle to the top of the heap or hide underneath? Where do you find yourself? Do I see where self centered behavior blocked a partnership relationship with any one of those around me? To be able to form these partnerships, you're so interested in yourself and your own needs that you can't form that. Or if you do form it, it unravels soon enough because you burn them. Do I fail to, and you're 40 years later wishing you didn't? Could have been different. Good people. Or maybe it was happening yesterday for you. Do I fail to comprehend true brotherhood, a positive part of a group or to fit into society? So do you fail to comprehend that? Or are you able to be a part of that? If not, maybe look into that. Why not? Do we object to these questions because we feel our own character defects have not been so glaring? I don't want to do any of this. The luxury step one doesn't have to, for certain. What's going on here? Why not? What's the matter with a severe personal inventory? Have we buried these defects under thick layers of self justification due to shame or embarrassment? Tidied up nice over that, got a little bow on it. Has this behavior led us into alcoholism or misery? So here's an interesting piece. If we write these questions and answers down on paper, we can view this as tangible evidence of our complete willingness. We're developing willingness here, and this is a further part of developing that willingness to move forward, to improve, to recover, to resolve issues. And the reason we're writing this down is because we are taking the information. We're, again, not so sensitive to the stuff we wrote down earlier. We've looked it over, we've written it top to bottom. It stung a little bit here and there maybe, and now we're trying to make some sort this stuff out a little bit to better understand character defects. Hey, to be a little informed when you head on into step 5, things to be able to talk about. The more you can talk about it in all ways, because you're still in step 5, you're going to tell all you know about yourself in an effort to find out what you don't know about yourself. Because some of that hidden piece may be the driver to alcoholism, to depression, crazy behaviors, and poor decision making, and bad decisions around money, and not being able to get along with other people. And the list goes on and on. Bill also invited questions. I'd like to propose a question. It isn't necessarily in any of the groups, but I think it's a worthy question, and I'll use a personal example. Do you have any memories, thoughts, images, ideas that are in you but don't appear to be yours? For example, something maybe happened during a blackout, but you're not sure. Appears to be memories or images from a dream. Feels like another life or deja vu. Possible trauma from an accident, injury, or an event. Seems like something I witnessed happened to someone else, even. Can you describe all the details, thoughts, feelings, names, places, and surroundings related to it? This is something, and I'm going to use an example, personal example. You could do this in just a question format or in a list format, depending on, I guess, how many names you had. This is a simple example, but it happened to me when I was 4 or 5. I was running and I fell, and I smashed my wrist onto a broken glass bottle. And for a long time in my life, I thought it happened to my brother. It's really just more recently that I finally start to see it the way it is, because I always seen it happening to my brother. So, well, that's an innocent enough example. Nonetheless, it's accurate. Um, but there is other stuff out there. Maybe now blackouts. There's a big area. So it could be these little pieces of something that maybe are real or imagined, and you're not quite sure, but you could easily jump over them if a question wasn't presented directly. I've had some experience with this, and I find it a merit-worthy question. I also wanted to take a moment to show you, in 98, I had the questions after the harms done others list, but I didn't understand at the time that they were being used to cross-examine as I understood it. Today it makes far more sense to me. So I truly hope that this has been an eye-opener to put this stuff into context. Again, in a AA meeting, we would go into a meeting and read all of step 4, this being a part of it. We would have blazed right through it, all of this right over the head, no context. And if someone did do a 4th step on this, it certainly would have been much better than no 4th step, but it would have missed a lot. So now that's where the pieces fit. We'll have one more video about step 4. Now I want to read the step book, step 4, in its entirety. And I want to make references as we progress in the book, as we read. We will get to this section. It will look familiar to us. There'll be other articles of context that we'll visit. We'll visit where I turned up the fear list, and we'll also visit other pieces that fit into the step 4 in context. Well, I look forward to us all understanding step 4 in the step book and to completing step 4 also. It's worth it. Well, thank you very much and have a nice day.
If you found this video helpful, please like and subscribe. Ring the bell to be notified when new content is added. Also, you can support the channel 12-Step Guide with Troyo by donating through PayPal to hsworldservice@yahoo.com. In Step 4, we are laying the groundwork and planting seeds for the 9th step promises. Those promises are: we are going to know a new freedom and a new happiness. We will not regret the past, nor wish to shut the door on it. We will comprehend the word serenity and know peace. No matter how far down the scale we have gone, we will see how our experience can benefit others. That feeling of uselessness and self-pity will disappear. We will lose interest in selfish things and gain interest in our fellows. Self-seeking will slip away. Our whole attitude and outlook upon life will change. Fear of people and of economic insecurity will leave us. We will intuitively know how to handle situations which used to baffle us. We will suddenly realize that God is doing for us what we could not do for ourselves. Keep moving forward. It's worth the effort,